Hey readers, happy holidays. Welcome to our very special December episode of our book club.
Woo.
We're so excited to see you and talk about books. And we've got a great one to discuss this month. It's One Day in December by Josie Silver. But before we get to that, we actually just wanted to talk about our holiday reading plans because I look forward every year to having a few days off from work, from my regular reading, to do some holiday reading, some vacation reading.
When you pointed to me, I thought you were going to say, have a few days off from my colleagues.
That most specifically, right?
Happy to have a few days off.
No, but I'm looking forward to reading some things that are just easy on the brain, I think. We've had a few emotional book club reads the past few months, and so this got me started on the sort of candy that I'm going to be reading over the break. And so I just wanted to hear from you guys what your reading plans are for the holidays, if you take the same tactic, or if you're diving into something very thick and long, or what's your plan?
So, as you guys know, I read like 10 books at a time.
Yes.
I'm always like picking up a book, starting
I don't know
it.
how you do that.
Well, it's if I'm reading 3 at a time, I'm actually reading 3 books. Any more than 3, and I've started a bunch and abandoned them.
Okay.
For example, this morning, I was on the train, and I didn't have my paper book with me, so I got out my phone, and I opened up Wilder Girls, which I started easily 3 months ago, and had only read about 75 pages of, and I had to start over. So it kind of bites me in the butt sometimes.
Yeah.
But so over break, I've been slowly reading Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern.
Okay.
So I'm going to wrap that up. I've just been like savoring it. You know, when it takes an author you love 9 years to write a book, you've got to stretch it out for as long as you can.
Totally.
Good thing it's a long book, too.
Yes. So I'm going to finish that up. Now that I've restarted Wilder Girls, I'm going to read that
Keep
all the
going.
way, I think. Yeah.
Don't start over for the third time.
And I'm really excited to finally read something that I know that both of you have already read, which is My Sister, the Serial Killer.
Yes.
I'm so excited.
Oh my
I'm going to
gosh.
just like rip through that on the way
will.
home to visit my parents. I'm very excited.
You'll read it on the bus ride.
Yeah, that's my plan.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
so
short
excited for
and
you.
sweet.
That's my bus ride book. I'm very thrilled.
I actually just gave My Sister, the Serial Killer to my brother's girlfriend and my dear friend.
My
who-
sister-in-law, the serial killer.
Are you hinting at something?
No, and she just moved to a new city and she doesn't know anyone, and so I gave her 2 of my favorite books to read
Like comfort read.
while she's like
That's
before she
nice.
makes friends, and then you can pass them on to your new friends once you make them, and that was one of the books.
Oh my God, Abby, that's so cute.
Love that.
But she has already read it in a coffee shop in Dublin and said that she really loved it. So
Oh, amazing.
Sounds delightful.
There are a few things I'll be doing over the holiday
Okay.
break. I want to read Royal Holiday by Jasmine Guillory.
yes.
Ooh, I can add that to my list.
Yes, add it to your list. I love all of her books. I've read all of them. And I just feel like that one will put me in the perfect holiday spirit.
So thematic.
I'm actually also going to start Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. And I want to do something that I don't normally do for myself, which is like reread some of my favorite books.
Oh yeah.
I love to reread.
I actually almost never do reread anything.
I'm rereading Laura Lippman's Tess Monahan series from the beginning because one of my friends mentioned reading the first one, and I was like, I should do that
I
again.
want to do that again.
Over Thanksgiving break, I read 3 of them. I was just like ripping through them.
I feel like it's, I don't know, like you definitely gain something from rereading one of
it's
your favorite
comforting.
books. It's comforting, and I did it the other day for like 0.2 seconds. I turned to like one of my favorite books, which is, I talk about this book all the time. It's Darius the Great Is Not Okay, which is a YA book, and I just like turned to one of my favorite parts and reread it, and I almost started crying. And so I was like, I want to feel that. Like, I want to just like revisit one of my favorite books. And
Do you have one picked out?
I don't yet. I'll let you know what it is when I do. And then the one last thing that I want to do is that I want to read for the first time, don't make fun of me, Little Woman before I see the movie. I am ashamed to say that I've never read it. I've always wanted to. It's just somehow fallen off my list because there are so many books to read. But I really I'm making it a goal to read it before Christmas Day because I want to see this movie. It looks great. And so that's my plan.
That sounds like a great holiday break.
Those are some really good ones.
Ab, what do you have set aside?
Okay, well, my Christmas treat is The Christmas Shopaholic by Sophie
Oh, so
Kinsey.
cute.
Nice.
I love Sophie.
I love her, and we got to meet her and interview
It was
her.
so cool. I was starstruck.
I know. I also have not read Royal Holiday, and so I might tuck that in my bag as well. And you know, she just announced her next book coming out this summer. So Jasmine, we're in awe of you. You are like a wonderkind, writing so fast. And let's see what else is on my list. Okay, I bought all these books to give as presents to people, but
you want to just
Just make sure they're okay.
That's called quality control.
before I wrap them up.
Right.
I might give it a spin. So yes, there's one called A Single Thread,
Okay.
which is historical
Yep.
fiction, and I'm gonna be giving that to my mom. Should I not say that? But anyway, she'll forget by the time she opens it. And yeah, so that I've got that in my back pocket. That's Tracy Chevalier, who I adore. And then I think I'm going to pop Zadie Smith's Grand Union in my bag.
Nice.
For a little, you know, like the holidays can be so disjointed and, you know, then you eat so much, you're so tired, you have to go to sleep. So I think short stories are sort of perfect to dive into.
I love the hypothetical scenarios you always come up with for reading short stories.
I know, I can't just read them. It's gotta be because like I'm so full that I'm gonna fall asleep, which is accurate. But finally, then I'm going to listen on audio to Dear Girls by Ali Wong.
Yes.
Nice.
Oh my
That's a good one for
You're
audio.
in for a treat.
I know.
Yeah.
So I was listening to some comedy last night, and it's just like funny things in the background while you're rapping are sort of kind of perfect.
Yeah.
And her voice just is the best thing ever.
I'm obsessed with her.
Yeah.
You're really obsessed with her.
And I'm going to see her
Ooh.
in April, so far away, but still.
All right, so last but not least, when we were getting ready for our December book club, our producer Pat suggested that we do a white elephant exchange, or really just kind of like a book exchange where we gift books to the other two hosts, and I'm the only person who completed the assignment.
So sorry.
Whoopsie.
So I have
my
some
God.
presents for these ungrateful jerks who don't love me.
I feel so bad.
So Jess, for you, I have The Westing Game by Ellen Raskin. I love recommending books to Jess because she's enough younger than I am that there are a lot of books from when I was younger that she just like missed because she wasn't
She was an infant.
born yet. And I know that you love YA, and I guess I think this might actually be considered middle grade.
Yes.
But so delightful, really cute. This is an anniversary edition, and I was just like, this is right for Jess. And then I was talking to Abby about it to see if it was a good book for Jess, and Abby hasn't read it either. So, you know, maybe I'll hit you on the next
Pass
one.
it on, yeah.
But you I struggled with because you read so much. So I have a new book, but I'm still afraid that you've already read
I
it.
haven't.
It is The Fountains of Silence by Ruta Sepetys.
I'm so excited.
And I chose it because I feel like whenever we talk about historical fiction, that's like what makes you light up.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about how much everybody loved the Liz Gilbert earlier this year,
Yes.
which they're very different subject matters, but just thinking about like the kinds of historical fiction that we like, This is actually set in Franco's Spain. So it's very intense, and I haven't read it yet, but it seems to have a delightful, romantical thread. So this one's for you, Abby, The Fountains of Silence.
Thank you. Now I'm feeling really bad
Good.
right now.
We're gonna find you great books, Emma. I'm gonna do this right away.
Ours will be more of like a New Year's present for you.
Right.
But thank you.
I'm on it.
We
Thank
love
you.
you.
Emma.
Love you guys.
Also, we're glad to have you back in the fold.
So happy.
So, because you give us presents.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm
On that
super
note.
excited to dive into this. Thank you. And I haven't read it yet, and I'm very thrilled to. But should we talk about the book we actually all have read?
Yes.
So we read alongside with you One Day in December by Josie Silver. Now, this was a Reese Witherspoon book club pick, in addition to a Read It Forward book club pick. I see a lot of similarities here, but it's a delicious and delightful love story, friendship story, misconnection story. So, if you haven't read it yet, our gal Lori is on a bus in winter in London, and out of the foggy window she sees this handsome guy, and they like have this sort of wordless connection.
Their eyes meet.
Mm-hmm.
Sparks fly, and she rushes to get off the bus, but it pulls away.
He's like trying to get on.
Well, he's
the
trying.
bus.
Yeah. But there's so many people, and it just like
It wasn't
doesn't
meant to be.
happen.
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't make it on the bus. She doesn't meet him.
No. So then the bus drives away.
Yeah.
And all year long, she's like, I need to meet this guy. Like, I know that I'm going to see him again.
Looking for him everywhere
Looking
she
for
goes.
him everywhere. Then one day she finds him on the arm of her best friend at a Christmas party. And, his name is Jack, by the way, and he's now dating Sarah, her bestie. And she's kind of like, well, shit, man, this is the bus boy.
But she doesn't tell Sarah. She has to make a decision. Like, Sarah is very familiar with busboy.
As you would be if your friend was obsessed with.
Mm-hmm.
And Sarah has also been talking up Jack as her boyfriend to Lori. And so in this moment, she has to decide what to do. And she decides not to burst Sarah's bubble and to keep it to herself.
And she realizes this is probably her only chance to come clean about the truth, but chooses not to. And in that moment, I was just screaming inside a little bit. But if I were in her shoes, I probably would have done the same thing.
It's quite a conundrum because there's no correct choice. There's a correct choice for this book because if she told them, the story would be over.
Yes.
Right.
But in terms of in life, it was all downside.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I felt like, so then basically Lori is sort of on the side of this couple, they're...
But they become friends, the three of them.
Yeah, exactly.
They describe themselves as a triangle, not a love triangle, kind of, but a trifecta of friends.
Which I totally get. I'm best friends with a couple, and I am not in love with him.
Disclaimer.
But I get what it's like to hang with a couple and to not want to upset the apple cart in any way.
Right.
And so this book takes us through a decade?
Close to 10 years, I think.
Yeah. And, Lori and Jack, will they or won't they end up together is sort of what propels the novel forward. They each have career growth and setbacks, and
I like that this book is about romantic intrigue, but it's not the only thing that it's about.
Yes.
Exactly. Ultimately at the heart is this female friendship, and it's sort of a coming of age story.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got a lot of complexity there.
I think couching it as just a romance novel isn't totally accurate,
fair, yeah.
because there's just so much going on in this story. from female friendship to family trouble to dealing with depression. And
to be fair, we like just romance novels.
yes, of course.
But I think I wouldn't have been interested in this particular scenario if it was just a romance novel, because it's clear that one of the friends is going to be sad, if not all three of them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I much prefer to read a book about female friendship than about two women fighting over a man.
Yeah.
For sure. Exactly. Which I was, I didn't want this to evolve into, which is why I think it was actually smart of Lori to keep this to herself.
Yes.
When she finds out at the Christmas party, like, and Jack realizes it too, and he also stays mum.
But the two of them don't necessarily know whether the other person
Yes.
remembers.
Which is why it's cool that we get a bunch of different perspectives.
Yeah.
We don't just get Lori's perspective in this book.
Yeah, I love that we get Lori and Jack's point of views. I feel like it adds so much more to the story. I always love that in books because it's just like really cool to see like what the other person is thinking in the scenario. And I think that Josie really channeled like both the woman and the man in the relationship like really well.
Yeah.
I really loved listening to Jack's thoughts, and it's like he is such a guy sometimes, you know, like, but I just thought she did that really well, and I love that this book spans so much time.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes when love happens immediately, I find it to not be relatable.
Totally.
I think like the fact that they kind of grew together and like had so many things happen to them in between is just like very relatable to me.
Yeah, it's like a real slow burn.
A real slow burn. And I loved that like you see how things change over time. Not only with them, but like with everything.
Yeah.
And I also really appreciated, so something we haven't even touched on is that for much of this book, Lori actually has a different love interest in Oscar.
Oscar.
And they have a whirlwind romance, and they get engaged and they get married.
Yeah.
And I feel like in a lot of romantic comedies, both in books and on screen, that would be handled by her realizing right before the wedding or at the altar that they shouldn't get married, or it would be handled by Oscar being a bad person, cheating on her, doing something unforgivable. And instead, they really did truly love each other. They were excited to get married. They got married, and maybe they weren't suited to be together forever. And so it was just like a more natural end of a relationship than you usually see in this kind of book, because Oscar was not just an obstacle between Lori and Jack.
He was a real love
He was a real love interest.
And you're right, it didn't rely on like the tired trope of like, oh, I thought this guy was a good guy, but he's actually a bad guy. And
Right.
Right, and you know, he had both good and bad, as do all the other characters in this book. I mean, for a lot of this book, I didn't want Lori or Sarah to be with Jack because he was being a big jerk.
Yeah.
And his storyline is kind of like how to grow up, how to find your own way in the world.
Don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. And you know, we all struggle with
We
that
do.
at varying degrees and at varying times, but like that was refreshing that he was not like the romantic ideal, and Oscar was like clearly the wrong person. It's just much more nuanced than that.
Totally. Yeah. So one thing that we are referring to is this awesome book club kit, which has cocktails and refreshments. It also has like a romantic movie guide.
That's cute. I didn't see that part.
That's so cute. It has a quiz. Are you a Lori or a Sarah? It has an interview with the author. So we'll link to that in our book club page if you guys want to refer to that. But there's some great, things for your book club to refer to.
Before we dive in,
I
have one pressing question.
Okay.
Tell me what it is.
Do you believe in love at first sight?
What a good pressing question.
I don't believe in it for me personally. That's like not how I operate.
And then I have a follow-up, but continue.
Do I think it can happen to people? I don't know, maybe. I thought Josie Silver wrote such a compelling description of love at first sight, because if you read that blurb on the back, like what it's about, you're like, oh, like they see each other across the street and they're in love, like, give me a break. But that description of that instant connection and just feeling like I need to know more, I think that's kind of a universal feeling.
Right. And my follow-up is,
Oh, sorry.
do you believe in soulmates?
No.
Okay.
I don't believe there's one person for everyone. That's just so limiting.
Right. Okay. Abby?
I do believe in love at first sight.
Okay.
You feel like, to me, you feel like someone who could fall in love at first sight.
Yeah.
You're more open to that way.
Watch out.
It's going to tape them over.
Don't
Even
Don't
blink.
walk into my path. And I believe in soulmates. I think there's probably more than one person who is suited for you, but I think that is an idea that, whether it's true or not, definitely pervades my level of thinking about a relationship, and so it's kind of hard to turn it off or ignore, because I'm like, he could be my soulmate. So whether or not it's true, it's definitely something that I believe in, because I think we've been told that we should believe in soulmates as a way to like further the
patriarchy
operation of marriage.
As a way to hold down women in heterosexual relationships.
3 single gals here. But do you? What about you?
Yeah, tell us.
I do. I don't know. I mean, I've never fallen in love at first sight. I think, actually, funnily enough, the people who have become people who I consider soulmates in my life, because I think I've had a few. I haven't really thought much of them the first time I meet them. I think they're okay, and then I kind of like go about my day. But then they kind of weave their ways into my life, and it continues for a very long time, and like it's like a slow burning build.
I think that grows a stronger bond.
Yeah, and that's why I think I liked that this book took place over such a long period of time.
Because they kind of do both.
They do both. But yeah, I do believe in love at first sight. I think that you do know when you have a connection with somebody right away. But I don't think you exactly know what it will lead to. Like, love at first sight doesn't necessarily mean soulmate, maybe.
Totally. And who knows if it's like attraction at first sight? Like, you can't tell, like,
right.
Are they nice to animals? Are they, like, are they
you haven't gone down
You haven't checked off everything.
Are they kind to waiters is a big one for me.
Oh, yeah.
Do they love their mom? You can't really tell a lot from first sight. But you can be like...
You can look in their eyes.
Oh, damn. Okay, so you know what I really want to talk about with you guys is Sarah as a person, as a friend.
Yes.
What do we think about Sarah? Is she good to Lori? Is this an equal friendship on equal footing?
I think it's hard to say, because by necessity, we don't get as much of Sarah's internal life.
Yeah.
She's still a well fleshed out character, but it's just tough to give so many characters the in-depth kind of look that I would like. I think I was surprised that Sarah did not go to Lori's wedding. Obviously, that's a huge rift, and it happened immediately before the ceremony, or like 2 days before. Right. But I personally, no matter what was happening, that's something I would show up for.
Right. You go to the wedding.
You just go, because there's no there's no opportunity to try again.
Right.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think the way that Josie handled their friendship and then this rift and then the way that they come back to each other again was very graceful and reminiscent of like true friendships.
Yeah.
And I was aware of this book like right when it came out, and this is something that I would usually be really into. And then when I found out like what the kind of elevator pitch for this book is, I thought, I'm not interested in this, again, because it's like two women who have a lovely friendship fight over a man, or like it's just not what I'm interested in reading. And I'm so glad that it got picked for book club, because I don't think I would have read it otherwise, and it's much more nuanced than that. And the one thing I cared about was how their friendship evolved, and I was very satisfied by that arc.
Yeah, I think that I really enjoyed reading about Sarah and Lori, because especially in the beginning of the book, I'm around their age when it starts, and I'm new to the roommate life, and I have a very like special close friendship with my roommate, and so I loved reading about their relationship and just the things that they do in their small little flat, and it was like a very emotional part for me, and I thought ultimately Sarah was a good friend. I think that not going to the wedding was a huge mistake, but I do wish I had more of Sarah's point of view. I think the one thing about when an author gives you multiple perspectives
then
is
you want something from everyone.
Yes.
It's tough.
It's tough. So I wish I had more, and I
was like, tell me more about Oscar's mom.
And I do believe that, like, I mean, these aren't real people, obviously, but like Sarah probably regretted not going in the end. But I don't know who I related to more, Sarah or Lori. Sometimes I find myself like in the middle. But Sarah's a fiery girl. I mean, she's like beautiful and outgoing and like in your face and funny. And I think Lori needed that.
Yeah.
And I think that their friendship, although like kind of broken up by a man for a brief period of time, was stronger than that. And so I like that that's kind of like what happened here.
Yeah, I mean, do you think I did not know if it was realistic that Sarah would not recognize the tension between her best friend and her boyfriend.
So, me too.
Even though Jack's not admitting that he's ever seen her before out loud.
So I reread today the part where Lori finally comes clean about the boy from the bus, the man from the bus, and when Sarah's like furious. And Sarah does say that she noticed something was between them, like she couldn't put her finger on it.
But at this point, it's been like 8 years.
And so that made me wish, like, why wouldn't you say something, like, in all that time?
Yeah.
Like, you just kind of let that go. So I feel like in a more, like, real friendship, like, she would have been like, what is going on with you? Like, they know each other so well, right? So, I don't know. I thought that was, like, a little
But again, like, we got to move this plot where it needs to go.
Right,
and I was willing to be along for the ride.
Right.
Well, so Lori ponders at some point, like, how much information withholding is a lie and, like, what's just, a lie by omission, So is she lying to Sarah and is she lying to Oscar?
Well, I think first and foremost, she's lying to herself.
Oh!
Good call, yeah.
That was good. You're like a therapist.
Just because that's how she's coping.
Yeah.
Which I think is why she doesn't feel like she's lying to Sarah or Oscar. But then, like, she does have to kind of straight up lie to Oscar. But then again, you think about it, it's like, what constitutes an actual lie and how radically transparent do you need to be?
Yeah, are you supposed to tell your spouse like everyone you've ever had a crush on?
Or yeah,
I hope not.
It just seems
It'll take me a long
unrealistic.
time.
It seems unrealistic, and also like kind of none of Oscar's business, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I'm expressing that clearly,
well,
but
Oscar didn't tell her about his ex and their whole situation.
Oscar.
Not that like that shouldn't like become like a regular thing, but like I think everyone can keep certain
Some
things
secrets
to themselves.
Yeah, I guess
agree.
I don't even think of it as secrets, just about like something that's personal that you save for yourself.
But what did you think when Lori and Jack kissed? And it was a steamy kiss in the snow. And she did keep that to herself as well.
Yeah,
And-
I would too.
Yeah.
That for me was a problem.
Yeah.
That's crossing the line.
That's where they went from it being like, "Ooh, he's the bus boy," and like I can never tell, to actually we did something bad,
Right.
to a close friend of both of ours. It can be relationship ruining, and we're just gonna pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Totally.
Also, they were so close to not crossing the line.
So close.
I know. But that's where I was like, okay. Now this is like, without being the busboy and they kiss, then it's like a standalone problem.
Yeah.
Never mind all of this history, making it even more loaded.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's where I was like, okay.
And it made me think, like, if my best friend was in love with the person I was dating or used to date, how would I feel?
Not great,
Not
Rob.
But would you ultimately be okay with it, do you think?
It really
I
depends.
don't know.
It's such a, like, hard thing to think about.
Yeah. If I really didn't love them anymore, like Sarah's like, Jack was not my person. It's cool if he's your person. I think it would take me a while to get there, but I think if you were really like, I'm not jealous of you because I don't want him,
Right.
then that's a different thing. But
Right.
I think that's not the case with a lot of relationships. So the way Lori pushed down her feelings about Jack reminded me later of like the way she copes with loss and some family members and grief and even friends. Like, what's her deal with coping?
Repress.
Yeah.
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 I think she finds it hard to talk about things. And so this is actually interesting. It's making me rethink what I said before. Maybe Sarah wasn't the best friend to her. I don't know exactly. I mean, like, I feel like the first time in a long time that she really opened up about her sister was with Jack. When she started just, like, crying on the couch in his arms. And, yeah, I just feel like she doesn't talk about it with pretty much anyone.
Yeah.
She likes to keep that little part of her life, big part of her life, hidden.
Yeah. It's like Sarah and Lori have different love languages, right? Like different ways of operating and different ways of dealing with problems. And, Sarah is much more forthright and like in your face. And that's what makes her a great TV host in the end. But it's almost like their communication styles don't allow them to get close to each other.
But I think they work it out.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. And Jack also, I think, and I think maybe the reason why Lori and him don't get together right away is because they don't talk about their feelings really about each other or like about tragedies that have happened in their life. Like after Jack has his accident and he's in this extremely depressed state, instead of like trying to open up about how he's feeling, he like just turns
Shuts
to
down
anger and
further,
shuts
yeah.
down.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was very cool to have this mental health portion of the book. I thought that was really important to see Jack struggle in this way.
yeah, I think like sometimes men aren't able to show that they're hurting emotionally. So I think that was like a good thing to see in a book. And it kind of just made him more like human to me, I guess. Seeing him struggle with, I mean, like he had some hearing loss, he had like several broken bones, like he was in pain physically and emotionally. And that just kind of like took the perfect busboy image and like made it like, no, he's like a real person who doesn't always get what he wants.
Yeah.
One last thing that I really want to talk about is the ending, which goes like full romantic comedy.
Yeah.
It's so delightful. This book must have been optioned. Someone
I feel like it has to
someone
be, right?
is going to
Someone
make this
needs
book
to
into a movie.
Yeah.
And
If not, the three of us will.
We can all be in it.
start my own production company, get this done. The final like set piece is Jack is living in Scotland.
Yeah.
And he's hosting a call-in radio show, and almost on a whim, Lori calls into the show, gives a false name, very smart, and that's how they work out 10 years of their relationship, by her calling, describing how they met, declaring her love, him figuring out it's her on the phone, him like responding to her in real time, and all of his listeners figuring out what's going on and going crazy on social media trying to find her. I loved the whole thing. It was so reminiscent of like what do they call it in England at Christmas time when they do like the music single? It's In Love Actually, and it's like love is all around us.
Right.
That's real. And it felt very much of that vibe of like the whole country was coming together for this one Christmas specific thing. But in this case, it was they want two real people, one of whom they know from the radio, who are in love, to get back together.
I know.
I loved the trip to Scotland, the race to the studio. I cried a little when the cabbie figured out that she was the girl. I was like, I just thought it was such a fun way to bring all of the travails of the novel to a close.
Yeah.
And like sometimes I don't like an ending tied with a pretty little bow. I thought this was the perfect book to tie with a pretty little bow, and I loved the way that it was executed.
Yeah, I thought this ending was irresistible and just so like, and you just are reading so fast, like, oh yes, go to Scotland.
Yeah, this ending is exactly what I wanted for this book.
Yeah.
I was so happy because you know when sometimes you read a book and you're just like, well, why was the ending like that? This was like, nope, perfect.
That's the way the ending should be. Yeah,
exactly. Well, we obviously loved this book, and we have loved hosting book club all year long with you guys. So thank you for your wonderful picks. We will see you again in January, and until then, happy reading.
Happy reading.